Hi everyone, Zach here, and welcome to the 5th video in this series on developing an RTS game in Unreal Engine 5. In this video, we'll be working on our Edge Scroll. This video and this series have been brought to you by Patreon sponsors, and you too can help the channel out. All you have to do is hit that like button down below and the subscribe button. If you want to take your support just a bit further and you want access to some of the projects, consider becoming a supporter on Patreon. Okay, opening up your projects and we'll make a start. All right, so here we are back inside the editor, and we're going to be working on our Edge Scroll. Now, this is going to be really complicated, and if you watch the original series, I'm actually going to fix one mistake that occurs. For those of you who have done the original series, what I want you to do, if you saw the project, open it up, and go to one of the corners, and tell me how fast you're moving. If you're not sure, put a checkerboard pattern down, or some way we can check your movement, and you'll notice you're moving at about more than twice the speed. We are going to address that in this video, which makes this a bit more complicated. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is actually calculate out our various edge scroll speeds. We'll have two. One for corners and one for the default. We've already done the default, so we just need to do the corner. To do that, we're going to go to our movement component. And in our movement component, we're going to go to our event graph and close everything to the right. We are going to just lower this a bit. We are going to create a new function called determine edge scroll speed. I'm going to create it out here, and then I'm going to collapse it down. So first, I want a new variable called corner edge scroll speed. And this will be of type float. And it will have a default of 10.67 or 10.067. It's actually rounding a bit there. And we'll put this into movement settings, not utilities, settings. There we go. And well, all we're going to do is we're going to take this and we are going to we're going to multiply the default movement speed by the square root of 0.5. And all we're really doing here, for anyone who's inclined to understand the math, we are solving the Pythagorean theorem. Really, that's all we're doing. We have two lines that form a 90-degree angle, X and Y, and now we're looking for that third angle between them. We know how to convert that out using basic A squared plus B squared equals C squared. Now we're just reversing that to solve for A and B. We have C, and we know that A and B are equal. So we have C. We know what our C's should be. Our C should be 15. All we're doing is solving for that. So let's collapse that down to a function, and this will be determine edge scroll speed. There we go. And this will be under our movements settings folder. Okay, next we have our edge scroll events. So that's going to go into our movement utilities, and that will be our edge scroll. Okay, so movement utilities. This is a bit tricky. So we'll start with the simple part first. We'll start with our branch. We want to ensure that edge scroll is not disabled. In other words, currently, that we're not panning the camera. So we are going to take disable edge scroll here. We are going to get not. We don't want not equal. We want not Boolean. We're going to plug that into there. Okay. So the part of this that's really confusing, we're going to take a moment just to talk about, is the fact that, hey, this is actually really 2D. What we're looking at is a 3D representation on a 2D plane. So let's just go over to this widget over here we have. In fact, you can see it in the bottom left corner of the screen as well. So Z is up, X is our depth, and Y is our width. So on paper, if we were to lay a piece of paper down in letter style, Y is the long side and X is the short side. All right, our screen, up and down is Y, left and right is X. Just like a normal 2D piece of paper. However, as I'm demonstrating, or I'm trying to demonstrate or explain, in Unreal, because we're looking at a 3D world projected on a 2D plane, we have to convert between the two. And we would then have to add in that third axis. On that third axis, Z becomes our up here. And we flop our X and Y for some reason. Now, not all programs out there do that. Blender, Unity, Maya 3D Max all have a different setup there. But we need to understand that the X and Y in our local 2D space, so our computer screen, is backwards to the X and Y of the 3D game world. Why does this matter? We have to get both those values, X and Y, on the screen and convert them over to values that work in the 3D plane. So we're going to calculate the proportion of the screen covered. When we talk about screen covered, we talk about from the top to the bottom. So up here at the very top of the screen is 0% covered. And as we move down to the very bottom of the screen, we get towards 100% covered. We start on the left, we have 0% covered from the left, and as we move to the right, we are filling into 100%. So we go down and across is the way to think about this. So what we're going to do is we are going to get player controller. We are going to get from this player controller the mouse position. So we're going to get mouse position. And notice we have this X and Y. Well, this is X and Y on that 2D screen. So that becomes a problem. But we'll take care of that, as I said, in a minute. What we want to do with this is know how much our mouse is down and how much our mouse is to the right. So again, we're getting a proportion, but we need another number to do that calculation. Not only do we need to know where the mouse is, we need to know how big the screen is. So we're going to do get viewport size. All right, and we get a 2D vector here, which we can split into an X and Y float. And then we can take the X here and we can divide it. So where are we? Divided by the amount in X we have. Likewise, we can do the same for Y. We can take our Y value and divide how much we have there. All right, so I'm just gonna line these up. And all this is calculates the proportion, actually it should be proportion of screen covered. So same as the original tutorial, for those of you who did the original, nothing here has changed. Now, what we're gonna do next, again, nothing has changed from the original tutorial, is we want percentages or proportions. So we want to scroll when we're at the top, when we're at the bottom, and we're at the left and right. Now, I'm not going all the way to the bottom because it'll open up my Windows bar thingy, and that's just annoying. So we'll start with our X values, which are really, remember, our left and right values. And all I'm gonna do is I'm going to do a greater than or equal to sign. And I'm going to then put a reroute in. Again, line those up for a moment. Pull off of this, and I'm going to do a less than or equal to. So remember, this is left and right. So when the number is small, when we're less than, we're looking at the left-hand side. And when it's large, we're looking at the right-hand side. Now, because I come from a psychology background and neuroscience background, I love stats, I'm going to use numbers that remind me of stats. So I'm going to pick my proportions at 0.975, so 97.5% of the screen covered to the right, and 0.025, 2.5%. So overall, that means that there's 5% of the screen on the left and right divided between the two that will edge scroll. So when we're on this side and we're less than 2% of the screen covered, then we're going to edge scroll, 2.5. Likewise, on this side, when we're farther to the right and we're greater than 97.5% of the screen covered, we edge scroll. I'm just going to duplicate these two nodes because the numbers aren't going to change, and they are going to go into this one. So when we are at the bottom of the screen, 97.5% of the screen covered, remaining 2.5%, we will edge scroll. And likewise, when we are at the top of the screen and within the top 2.5%, we will edge scroll. All right, so let's just comment out these two bits. This is our X values, which is left and right, and these are our Y values. All right, and we use these to decide if we need to edge scroll. Oh, there was an S there. Cool. So I'm pretty sure I typed an S, but who knows? All right, next is the really tricky bit. We're gonna have 8 branches, and these 8 branches represent the 8 different directions in which we can edge scroll. So remember, we can edge scroll up and down, left and right, and each of the 4 corners. So we'll start with the top right. So we're gonna take this one. We're just gonna go branch. There we go. We have our branch in. And for this one, what we're going to do is we are going to check, are we on the right-hand side? So we want to be greater than this. And we want to know if we're on the top, so we're doing top right first. So we want to know, are we less than 2.5% in the y-axis? There we go. Now I'm going to put reroutes into these because, oh God, we're going to be using these over and over again, and it's going to be really messy. So again, for top right, it is greater than 0.975 in the X value and less than 0.2 0.05 or 0.025 in the Y direction. Right. We're going to pause that on that part. We're not going to do the true. We're going to set up all the various branches. So that's the top right. Now we're going to do the bottom right. So for the bottom right, we're going to copy the and. We're going to plug it back into the conditional statement. And the bottom right is, remember, this is right-hand side here. So we are going to take from the greater than 0.975 on the X value and plug it into there. And we are going to take from the greater than 0.975. So we're at the bottom of the screen in the Y value. Now let me put a reroute into this one. And what you should be doing really if you want to test this on your own is put print strings at each of these. So this would be top right, bottom right, and you want to check as you move your mouse around, is it the correct thing? I'm cheating because I have a prep file, which I've done all those work in already. So we've done the top right, bottom right. Now we're going to do the top left, and I'm just going to duplicate both of these because I know I need at least two more with an and statement. And we're going to come directly off the false in all of these. So for the top left, we've done the bottom right. Now the top left, we are going to come from here because remember, this is our left. We're going to plug into there. I'm going to give myself another reroute and I'm going to line that up to there. And then it is the top. So we want the small value off of our Y axis as well. There we go. That's our top left. Next, we have our bottom left. So again, for our X value, we are going to take the small value because that represents our left-hand side. And for our Y value, because we're at the bottom, we want the large value. All right, so that's our more complex ones done. Those are the 4 complex ones. I'm just gonna make sure those all line up. Next, we have our simple ones, and we have 4 simple ones. We have right, left, bottom, top. So let's just do this really quickly. We'll copy it. I don't know why I did that. I could just hold B down. Anyway, we'll do right first. And so remember, right is gonna be more of the screen filled. So we're gonna take from the X value on the larger side, and then we're gonna plug that in. We're gonna put another branch in. And then we will do right next, or sorry, left next. We just did right. And hang on, let me undo that. We are going to do right then left. Sorry, I just want to make sure I get this correct. So right is more filled. So we're going to take that 0.975 and left is less filled. So that's at 0.025, that 2%. So that's our top and our right and our left. And then we're gonna have our top and our bottom. We'll start with our bottom, and our bottom is the larger proportion of the screen filled. So that's 0.975. And our top is the less filled proportion. And we plug that into the bottom. So there's our little chain of statements. Right, we're also going to disable the camera movement when we do edge scroll. So we have this B disable camera movement. Well, what we're going to do is actually create a function for this now because it's a private and we should technically be using functions for that even though we're in the same class. We'll do set camera disabled. And we're just going to get that value, plug that into there, plug the Boolean conditional into the input pin, put a return in, and all we're going to do is put this into a category called movement bools because we're setting our bools. I think I said that in the last video too. Right, so back in our edge scroll, what we're going to do is we're going to disable the camera when we are edge scrolling. So we want to set camera disabled as true. Okay, the next bit we're going to do is we are going to skip several steps just so we can have it all line up nicely. And we are going to get the camera reference. And with the camera reference, what we're going to do is we are going to add local offset. So we want to add actor local offset in particular. We want to sweep. We want to split our delta location because we only care about the X and the Y. We will not be moving in the Z axis while edge scrolling. We will be moving the Z axis elsewhere, but we'll talk about that when we get there. So I'm just gonna give myself a lot of room because we have a lot of things to plug into here. Okay, that is our return pin, so to speak. We're only gonna have this one thing. And just let me zoom out again really quickly so I can come back in and clean that up just a bit. And to prove my point on that, literally we're gonna have one return and it's gonna go straight into there. So our X and our Y, let's take care of that really quickly. Our Y is actually going to be plugged into our X. Remember, like I said, our screen spaces are swapped from our world spaces. So we have to switch them. So to do that, we're going to switch here. So we're going to promote this to a local variable, which I will call delta speed Y local. Remember, Y is going to be plugged into our X value. From our Y delta location, we're going to make another local variable, which would be delta speed X local. So X variable will be plugged into the delta Y. All right. So we now need to set these values, and that's what we're going to do here. So between, actually, I'm going to give myself a bit more room. So between our disable camera and that reroute, we are going to set our delta X speed and our delta Y. I'm just going to start with our delta X. There we are. We've set it to 0. We're not edge scrolling. And then our delta Y. Again, we've set it to 0. We're not edge scrolling. So for this, what we're going to do is we are going to get our camera edge scroll speed. We have our camera edge scroll speed, and we are going to multiply this by our movement speed modifier. So we had this movement speed modifier. When we hold down the shift key, for example. All right, so let me just move this down here, and I'm just going to drag that up there. There we go. And I'm going to plug that into there. And then I'm going to come off there and plug that into there. So we only want to do the modifier on one of the two. It doesn't matter which of the two. You could do it on any of the two, or either of the two, just not both of them. So that is our movement in our direction of the top right. So I'm just going to comment this out as top right. Okay. So probably should have done these a little bit later. So for our other ones, for our bottom right, I'm going to take all of this information again. I'm going to copy and duplicate it down here. I'm going to plug it into here. And now I'm going to change the numbers up a bit. So I'm going to come into here, break that for a moment, copy that multiply pin, plug that into there, plug that into there, and I'm going to set a value of -1 because we are moving in the bottom. So that's down according to our movement controller. So again, this is our bottom right. So bottom right. So for our top left, I'm going to take these bits and I'm going to copy them and I'm going to paste them here. All right, there we go. So far, everything looks the same pretty much across the board for all of these, right? So for this one, we need to add in one more pin. And this one will be our -1. There we go. And then let's just move these bits down. And this again is our top left. So we have our bottom right, our top right, our bottom right. Now we have our top left. And then we're going to do our bottom left. So for that one, well, we're going to take this bit, we're going to copy it and paste it down here. There we go. We're going to take that pin there, copy it, paste it down here. Plug that into there, plug that into there, because now we're moving in directions that are both negative values. Both of these values in the X and Y have to be negative values. So this is our bottom left. And I'm just going to move this entire thing up. There we go. Okay, all right, so that is all of our weird ones. So let's just really quickly before we proceed, plug all these into the same reroute. If you want to add in more reroutes so it's a bit neater, you can. I am not going to waste your time on screen doing that. What I mean is I'd add a reroute here, plug that into there, that one goes into that, make a reroute here, plug that one in, rinse, repeat, all the way down the chain. Right, so the rest of these are fairly straightforward. So for our right, let's just take this bit here. Actually, I lied. Let's take this bit here. And all we're going to do is come down here, and there is our right. And all we have to do is plug that into there, delete this reroute. In fact, I probably should delete that reroute too. Plug that into there, and, well, this isn't a corner. We don't need a corner there. We need the default movement speed there instead. There we go. So now have the right done. And let's just move this up without taking that with, please. Thank you. We are going to then duplicate these sets of nodes, just so we don't have to change out that one bit. We're going to paste that into there. And now we are doing left. The only difference between these two is what we do here is we make this a -1. So that is our left done. So left. And then we have our bottom and our top. We actually have one more after that too, but we'll talk about that in just a moment. This one is fairly simple. I'm going to cheat and paste this one down here on our final branch. And I'm going to take the right one and I'm going to paste it on the second to last branch. Okay. So on the second to last branch, this will be our bottom. What I'm going to do is I'm going to unplug the delta X and I'm going to plug that. I got these backwards. I'm going to unplug both the delta X's. I'm going to move the one with a -1 for the multiplication to the second to last one and plug that in because this is bottom and that is our S key. So that's down technically. And then I'm going to take the one without the -1 and plug that into the delta Y at the bottom here. So, which is the top. So this is bottom. And then let me just move all this down. This is top. And what we're going to do is have a catch-all. We are going to copy over all of this code. And we are going to leave it as 0 and 0. And we're going to change this to false. So that when we're not in any edge scroll condition, the camera is not just randomly being disabled and we aren't randomly scrolling. Okay, for this one I actually am going to put the reroute in because it's a bit of a hike up there. So we're just going to plug in all of these into that set of add local offset and the return node. And that includes even the catch-all down here. All right, so that is the edge scroll pretty much done. All we have to do is implement this thing. So how do we implement our edge scroll system? Well, let's go back to our player controller. And in here, let's move these down because again, we're gonna need a bit of room. I'm gonna have one more thing with the edge scroll later on. Let's just do our edge scroll. We're gonna do mouse X and we're gonna do mouse Y. And in both cases, I want to execute when paused as well. So mouse Y, execute while paused. And all we're going to do is we're going to take either one of these and we are going to get our camera movement reference. We're going to copy it and we are going to do edge scroll. There we go. Plug that into there and plug that into there. Let's go ahead and test this thing out. Make sure it works. So let's pop over to our main map. Actually, hang on, go back there. Make sure to save or compile. Let's hit play. So regular camera movement works. Rotations work. Zoom works. And now I'm going to move the mouse to the right. And there I'm scrolling to the right because we know the divot's to the right. And then likewise, I'm going to go to the left. And we know it's working because the divot was now to, well, was originally to our right. And we moved to the right of it. There we go. And now I'm going to go to the upper or bottom right corner. There we go. Bear's bottom right. Bottom. There we go. Left. Top right. Sorry, I was slightly off the screen there. And then let's go sort of down so we can see this working using the divot as our frame of reference. And then top left. There we go. So our edge scroll is working. And you notice the speeds are the same no matter what direction we move in. Now, you'll notice I'm holding down an S key right now, and I'm still edge scrolling. That's because I can't, there we go. So let me just do this. And we have edge scroll overriding our mouse. Second I move it away, I start going downwards again. So you can set it up however you want in terms of what makes sense for what you want to do. All right, in the next video, what we're going to do is we're gonna set it up so that when we go into a mountain like this, or go into the divot, wherever that divot, wherever that divot is, I'm just gonna hit play again to find it, that we end up going down or up. So we're gonna adjust the camera height. And then after that, we'll take care of the map boundaries. And that last little bit that I keep saying, hey, there's gonna be something here that I'm skipping, which you're already familiar with. It's the movement speed modifier. So if you wanna be here for all that, make sure to hit the subscribe and notify icon so you know when those tutorials are released. And if you wanna help this channel out, consider becoming a Patreon supporter. Patreon supporters at upper tiers get instant access to all completed and ongoing YouTube projects. At other tiers, Patreon supporters get access once a project is completed. And as always, I look forward to seeing you in the next tutorial, and I hope that you have a wonderful day.